it's interesting and somewhat ironic that the more successful we are at being alone, the less lonely we are. So counterintuitive. We think loneliness, it equates to not being next to another person or not being a part of a tribe or a community. So I'm not around anybody, I'm lonely. I feel disconnected. When we explore a little more deeply, we will notice that loneliness is possible when we're in a crowd, and loneliness is possible when we are a part of a family and part of a tribe. And it begs some really important questions about where does loneliness come from?
So just for a little bit of context, I've been sober for 5.5 years. I've been drinking my entire adult life. And I feel that despite that, I have had very successful relationships. I think I have a lot of insight into my own psyche, and the things that bother me and trouble me. And I have a therapist that I work with. I have a great community with Recovery 2.0. But I have this deep sense of lack of safety inside. I don't trust myself. So I'm wondering how I can learn to feel confident and trust myself. I think it might be linked to self-worth or a lack of self-worth.
Mm.
I'm very easily hurt, very easily put off balance. Things can shake me to my core. And even though intellectually I know they're silly little things, they can really bring me down. So I'm hoping that I can learn how to develop a really strong, firm foundation within myself so that I'm not so easily knocked off balance.
Mm.
I have a feeling that without the alcohol, it's some kind of a primal wound that's very old and goes very, very far back.
Mm. Can you give me an example of something that you were maybe recently aware of that could really knock you off center, knock you off your perch?
I'm very afraid of other people's anger. Sometimes I'm afraid to speak my own truth or my own mind in case somebody gets angry with the question or something that I've asked. It's as if I feel deep down that I'm not deserving of voicing my own truth. So I get very afraid of people's anger.
Mm. Thank you so much. Beautiful. I'm going to jump into this inquiry and we'll see where this heads. It's a very, very powerful inquiry on multiple levels. I have a friend, a therapist, a very wise man. At the bottom of his emails, he has a saying written there, sort of by his signature at the bottom of an email, you know. And it says, "You can't get there from not here." And I love it so much because everything is really about this orientation to here. When we get off center, when we are knocked off our perch, when we are stuck in fear, worry, anxiety, depression, if we're stuck in the past with a resentment or a story, or we're projecting out into the future with some anxiety, some fear of, will I lose what I have? Will I get what I want? And so this quote, "You can't get there from not here," asks us to come back home, to come back to presence, to come back to the here and the now. And it's at the heart of your inquiry about self-worth, about fear, confidence, connection. there's a reason why you fear the anger of other people. And that reason is in your experience somewhere, in your direct experience, childhood or after childhood, or both. You have good reason to be fearful of other people's anger because you were given good reason. You have been trained into understanding anger equals threat, danger. And there's a reason to be frightened of that. The good news is you don't have to remember, although you might, the exact events that took place that taught you that you should be frightened of someone else's anger. And in point of fact, everyone to some degree is scared of someone else's anger. Everyone. When you're around it, it's very uncomfortable. When someone becomes angry, now, there's some people that can tolerate it better than others, but it's off-putting. I have been around other people's anger, and I have been angry around other people. And I've been able to be on both sides of the coin there and see both how do I feel when somebody exhibits anger, and how do other people feel when I exhibit anger. So just in that example that you chose of being knocked off your perch, off your center in the presence of someone else's anger. Not so unusual. And so the question really is, how can I more deeply connect with my truth, myself, my power, my presence? How can I remain balanced when I'm challenged by external energies? We realize compassionately that we're vulnerable to external energies. We're vulnerable to the energy of other people. Some of us are empathic. We feel other people's emotions. Some of us are sympathetic. We feel sorry for what we imagine someone else is experiencing. Some of us are so tuned in to other people that it's hard to just get out the door. So with compassion, we explore this inquiry from a place of no blame, no shame, that there's nothing wrong here. We're just really exploring how can we manage better. I'm going to look at loneliness for a moment because it'll teach us a lot about your inquiry, and then we can go from there. It's interesting and somewhat ironic that the more successful we are at being alone, the less lonely we are. So counterintuitive. We think loneliness, it equates to not being next to another person or not being a part of a tribe or a community. So I'm not around anybody, I'm lonely. I'm not connected to this tribe, I feel disconnected, I'm lonely. When we explore a little more deeply, we will notice that loneliness is possible when we're in a crowd. We know that saying of being lonely in a crowd. And loneliness is possible when we are a part of a family and part of a tribe. And it begs some really important questions about where does loneliness come from? There's a wonderful story about a Western spiritual seeker who is looking for this advanced teaching, very hungry for this advanced spiritual teaching. And he gets wind of this master who has been meditating in a cave in the high Himalayas for many, many years by himself. And he decides, I'm going to get the advanced teaching from this master up in the Himalayan cave, you know? And he travels weeks and weeks and weeks and has a very hard time getting to the place where this man's supposed to be. And finally, he gets to the right place and the right mountainside and the right area, and he finds his way to the cave. And there is the master sitting in meditation. And the Western spiritual seeker sits down and, you know, makes some noise and draws the master out of his meditation. And the master looks at him and nods and welcomes him, you know. And he says, I've come all this way. And I'm seeking your blessing, your teaching. And there's a moment of silence there, quiet. And the seeker, the Westerner, looks around and looks at the master and says, you must be so lonely here. And the master says to him, in meditation just now, I was in perfect peace, alone with myself. In your presence, I'm lonely. And there's a very, very profound teaching there. And so we develop the capacity to be, to just simply be, to be with what is, to explore what is, like we're doing right now, to explore the self, the center of our being, this divinity within us, this presence within us, the spirit within us, our nature. And we do that work through meditation, through yoga, through conscious life and conscious living. And when we feel loneliness, or we feel anger, or we feel our reactivity to someone else's anger or someone else's energy, we have an opportunity to drop into presence. Wow, this person is so angry, frustrated. And of course, you assess physically, am I in danger? And if you sense that you're in danger, you leave the scene. You step away. But in the moment, it's just interesting. This person is upset. Or even this person is upset with me. Something I've done. Let me look at that. What's happening here? What's happening for me? What's going on right here in front of me? What's happening with this person? There's a presence to it. There's an absolute exploration of what is real in that moment. Of course, it's happening very, very quickly, right? Very, very quickly, assessing what's happening and looking at body language, listening to words, and doing what we can to remain conscious and centered. Your reaction, as you've shared, has been to be knocked off center in some way, energetically, emotionally, to feel disempowered in the moment or frightened. None of that is wrong. There's no judgment to any of those reactions. When you come to this inquiry, you bring this inquiry, make sure we just want to explore the inquiry, not assume that there's something wrong, but to understand it better. So the reaction to anger that reaction that you're describing of being knocked off center or feeling frightened or whatever that emotion is in the moment, the conscious directive is to notice in the moment, I feel knocked off center. The minute that you say that and recognize that, you're back to consciousness in the moment. There's nowhere that you need to go. I feel uncomfortable with this person's anger, or I wonder if I did something to contribute to this person's anger. Let me try to understand what's happening here. It's all happening very, very quickly. We're speaking about it, as if it's a slow thought process over, minutes or longer. But right in the moment, it's a return to consciousness, which is a practice that you've developed through your meditation, through your awareness and mindfulness practices, through your Kundalini meditation practices, bringing yourself to a greater state of presence, practicing over and over, observing what is, becoming more and more aware of what is, having a great distance between you and your thoughts. In other words, developing the witness, your capability to watch your thinking and to watch the emotions that are arising and just to be with them, not to judge them, not even to analyze them necessarily, but just to watch. I feel uncomfortable here. I'm off center. And then the deeper inquiry can start. Why? Why am I off center here? What has happened that I feel so off the mark in this moment? And whatever that is, that also is not to be judged as right or wrong. This is all just the way you have been trained to feel and to attach to feelings, to think and to attach to thinking in these moments. And the practice, as simple as it seems, is to return to consciousness by recognizing what's going on in the moment. You might be the one who's angry at times, and you might say, wow, I notice anger arising. Where's it coming from? What's causing it? So the practice is to return to consciousness again and again and again and again, and to remain there for longer and longer and longer periods of time, to notice when you get knocked off center. And the noticing brings you right back to consciousness again and right back to center. And this is the game. This is the practice of being a more aware human being in the face of whatever it is. Now, you might come to a realization, as so many have, I feel like I had a traumatic childhood, or I experienced things similar to what I'm experiencing now as an adult that are triggering memories, emotionally or otherwise, that are coming into the present moment here with me. If you can notice that in the moment, you can say, oh, this is a trigger for me. The thing I'm experiencing right now is related to something that took place before. This thing's here now, but my reaction to this thing here and now is so big, it's more hysterical, more powerful than is necessary, given what I'm dealing with in the present moment. So it indicates it's connected to or triggering a memory to something that took place before, maybe something that wants to be healed now. My friend and colleague, Nikki Myers, talks about, she has this great saying, if you're hysterical, it's probably historical. And it's a great one because it really sums up that teaching right there, that if we become more intensely reactive in the moment than what the moment requires, it's very often because we've been triggered into an emotional memory or even a subconscious memory of something that took place before. I believe the universe has our back. I've seen too many things and experienced too many things to believe or to understand things any other way. Often when we are in discomfort or something worse, pain, suffering, it's often just an attempt by the consciousness of the universe itself to have us wake up to something that we haven't seen yet. When we begin to look at things this way, we can seriously see the challenges of life as lessons. And we can look for the lessons actively. I feel challenged by this thing. What do I need to learn? And so the universe really is kind in its delivery of difficulty. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The universe is not particularly interested in your personal comfort, but it is very interested in your personal development. And so it will do what it needs to do. Because remember, this universe, this spirit, this presence, this divinity is not separate from you. It's running through you. And so it's not like some outside thing that's looking at you and saying, wow, this person needs to wake up. It is you, in you, recognizing this person, this entity needs to wake up. And so you're dealt up these different experiences. So tell me, June, what comes up for you as you hear this exploration?
Thank you, Tommy. You have such an amazing way of expressing and putting into words lots of things that go in my head all the time. I think for me, the value to all of this is I don't have to find the answers. I just have to ask the questions. And in the exploration, I think more will be revealed. And I think also from all the time I listen to you, I'm inspired to develop a meditation practice, to really dive deep. I don't really know what's holding me back. I do meditate, but I just know that that is where answers are going to be revealed to me. I think that's when I can get in touch with a feeling of being held and a feeling of safety, being held by that divinity within. Because I feel that that's what's lacking. I have this feeling that I want something to wrap its arms around me and make me just hold me and tell me that I'm going to be safe and I'm going to be okay. Know that that is not reachable outside myself like I used to with alcohol. It's something that I really have to develop myself. And I think, as you said, I think consciousness meditation is key. So thank you so much. You've given me a lot to think about.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you. There's a few more things that you have just brought into my consciousness. First of all, it's significant to me that you're right after the 5-year mark of recovery. Now, this is sort of like what I'm about to say could be sort of construed as good news, bad news.
I could take it.
Yeah. Not for you. It's going to be good news. I think good news. Well, it depends. My perspective from where I'm sitting today is that the first 5 years are really early recovery. Because what's possible for a human being in that amount of time, there's so much that has happened. And if you just reflect on the 5 years you've had, wow, what, and reflect on 5 years ago where you were then, I'm imagining that quite a bit of things have happened and transpired, and you've shifted and grown and changed and evolved so much as is possible. And somewhere between 5 and 10 years it seems that people go through another set of lesson plans in life, right between 5 and 10 years, almost as if the universe is setting you up for, in a sense, the rest of your life. And so what you take between 5 and 10 years is going to be very, very relevant to the duration. And what happened in the first 5 years was foundation, we laid the foundation for the next work that can be done here between 5 and 10. And so this question about connecting with self, building confidence, self-esteem, being vulnerable to the energy of other people is such an important inquiry. And it's a great one. It's a great question. And you just said it, you don't need to have the answers. You just need to ask the right questions. This process of recovery is about asking better and better questions. And I'm wondering if any of us ever really get to the final answers of it. It seems to be more of an unfolding, but a beautiful unfolding on what we call the path of discovery. So this inquiry that you're having, well, I'll speak for myself. This is not a question I could have asked in my first 5 years of recovery for me. This was a question, what you've asked, that I was going to have to ask later. And in fact, for me, I would say it came closer to about 9 years. When I was 9 years sober and I was facing some of the existential life crises that would force me to ask different questions and move down different pathways. So I really appreciate where you are and this inquiry at this point in the unfolding of your recovery and your incredible path that you're walking. Also, there's this thing about evolution that naturally, if you're really in recovery, you have to be evolving. And so I would say your recovery is evolutionary or it's not recovery. And so just that you asked this question speaks about such a powerful evolution that you've had and are having, and that everybody, by the way, benefits from. Just because you bring it to in the circle, everybody can benefit from this inquiry that you've asked. So thank you. And to recap, I would simply say, it is a personal responsibility to meditate. We know too much now that the inner world is going to affect the outer world. And there's a way that we can live waiting for the outer world to behave the way we think it should. And that hasn't gone so well for people. Or we can turn our gaze inward and organize this. Set the inner world up so we can live inside out rather than outside in. And if we don't deal with the inner environment, if we don't become what Swami Rama called a citizen of the inner world, we really can't expect the outer world to go much better than it ever has for us. So I highly recommend that you come into the Recovery 2.0 membership yoga practice area, and please come and meditate with us and practice with us. And I will do everything, June, to inspire and share and join you and support you on the meditative journey, which is really, it's the journey right to the heart of you. And that's really what you're asking about in this inquiry. So that's not I'm not trying to chastise you. in any way. I hope you don't feel that way. I chastise myself for missing days when I don't meditate on a particular day where I'm like, wow, this day got ahead of me, got away from me. And then the next day I'll meditate and I'm like, oh, much better. Much better. Let's keep going down this path. Anyway, so my personal plea to everyone everywhere, hear the call, heed the call, meditate, meditate, meditate. Start slow, start easy. You can get with us in Recovery 2.0. You can get with countless wonderful meditation teachers out in the world, and just start a small practice and begin. It's a great, great, beautiful thing to do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, June. So much love to you, and thank you for being with us on In the Circle today.